So that didn't go quite as planned. Hi and welcome to my channel. If you're new to this channel, I'm Øystein and I'm trying to become a bookworm. And today we're going to wrap up my September reads. For September I thought I would read these books. Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman, A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. And today we're going to see how it went. So these books were the ones I thought I would read in September, and these were the books I actually read. September has only been an okay month in reading, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the video. I thought first I'd go through the books I've actually read this month, and the first one was Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman, which I've made a video about, which you can find here. At first I was kind of scared to start reading this book because it's about 500 pages, and well, if I'm going to read 500 pages, I want it to be good, and this book was actually fantastic. It's an urban fantasy set in London where we meet fat Charlie Nancy, which has complicated relationships to his family, where his father is a god and his brother is a god, and that complicates his life. And the thing I enjoyed the most about the book was the mix between fantasy and how normal the relationships are between Fat Charlie and Nancy and his fiancée and his anger towards family, and it's all very human, and I think that's the aspect I loved the most about the book. The book is quite wild and very funny, especially the dialogue work in the book I really loved. Fantasy isn't really my thing, and I'm sort of exploring that area now, but I think Neil Gaiman is really my thing, so I'll keep on reading his books. So a great start to the month of September, and I should have just stayed with Neil Gaiman the rest of the month, in retrospect. More on that later. And I should have given this book a 5 out of 5, gave it 4 out of 5. Could still switch it to 5 out of 5, I'm considering it, and I've been thinking about that for approximately a month. We'll just see. After I finished Anansi Boys, I thought I would do my duty towards my YouTube project, and that was reading the longlisters for the Booker Prize, and I'm glad I did, because No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood was shortlisted shortly after. English puns, my new hobby. So this book is about a woman, I would say, trapped in the portal, as she calls it herself. The portal is internet, or I thought it was social media when I started. Some people say it's internet, I'm not sure. But it's written in a way that it seems like tweeting. So there are very short pages and it's a very quick read. The first half is sort of her being in a chaotic internet world. I think she distills a lot of internet in this book in a very good way. I actually laughed quite a lot when reading some of these passages, but it's very chaotic and it's very hard to pinpoint what is the plot, or is it a plot? It's a very famous internet person being stuck on internet, the first half, and then something happens in real life that makes the book more and more plot based, but still not very, it's not a clear leading line, you could say. I enjoyed the book, but gave it 2 out of 5 stars. That may sound weird, but for me it was like reading a poem. A lot of the things in the first half were quite fun to read, but I did not exactly see the point. So after I finished reading the book, I thought, what was the point? Even though I enjoyed some of the things that were being said in the book. I've thought a lot about this book afterwards, so in that sense, I think this is a book with meaning, even though I'm not currently understanding what the meaning is. After that, I started reading Trilogy by Jon Fosse. I talked to some friends of mine who thought that I didn't read enough Norwegian authors, and this was one of the books I actually bought very early in this bookworm process, because I've seen it around so much, and it won the Nordic Council Literature Prize for 2015. So I thought this was my ticket to experience Jon Fosse. It's one of the Norwegian authors I thought I should take a look into. I thought this book would be big and complicated, but it's not. I think I've read this book on a low level and that there are several layers here I don't fully grasp, but that's kind of the beauty. I could read this one more time and maybe understand more. But the plot and the storyline is quite simple. There's a young couple where the woman gets pregnant and they run away from the town they live in because they are not married, and they try to make a life for themselves. And it's quite difficult to make a life for themselves. It was quite a quick read and I enjoyed it, but I thought the language was kind of beautiful at times, but it wasn't more. This ended up being 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed the read, but I have no strong opinions, I think. The fun thing about the book is that there are very few full stops and commas in the book. That was interesting because I didn't notice it as much as I thought I would. And I did not know about this before I started reading, so it was kind of a surprise. I would suggest you find a more intelligent YouTube channel to read more about Jon Fosse. Last book on this list is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. And this is actually a book that have been on my list for 1 full year, because I've heard about this book when it won the Booker Prize for 2020, and it sounded like a book I would enjoy reading, and I sort of did. It's about Shuggie Bain, which is this boy or another boy who grew up in Glasgow in the 80s, and life is tough. His father has left them and his mother drinks a lot. I read one review of this book which said that this was a punch to the gut, and I couldn't agree more, because this is how it feels reading this book. I thought it would be mostly the perspective of Shuggie, and it sort of is, but you sort of feel like the book is mostly about his mother at times, which is a sad person to follow. Shuggie is struggling on all fronts of his life, and he sort of develops the classic caretaker role for his mother, and you follow their relationship closely. And it's a gruesome tale to read about. I'm sort of struggling to make up my mind completely about this book, because it's a good book and it's an important book. I do not regret reading this book. I'm sort of on the fence, 3 out of 5 currently. But if you have children, this is it will get you depressed, and you will be very happy that your kids are not in the same situation. That's at least my thoughts when reading it. The book is said not to be autobiographical, I can't say that word, but it's supposed to be based on the author's life, and the author, as I've read, thought that this book was not going to be published. It's not a book that I thought I would cry when reading, but several times I had to stop and tell my girlfriend that I did not want to read this book anymore because it was too painful. And that's maybe the first time I've read a book like this, because it was really painful to read, but not in a crying sense, only it hurt that people would have a childhood like this. So, I recommend you read this, but be prepared. So when September started and I picked up Anansi Boys, I was really happy because I enjoyed that book so much, and it was obviously the favorite of mine for this month. But after that I read books that was somewhat engaging, or not as engaging as I would have hoped, and that has led me down to a little reading slump. My first one, actually. And it's not a serious business, because I still read, and I read quite a lot, but I do not enjoy it as much as I thought. So if you have tips to how to overcome this, please tell me in the comments, because I'm not that sure. So what I did was that I picked up The Final Empire, the first book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. And that's kind of weird, because I do not enjoy fantasy that much yet, but I thought I might as well try to make this a way of getting out of the reading slump. So far it hasn't worked, but I still read quite a lot, and I enjoy this book a bit. I'm not sure yet. I do not know at this time if it's the book or it's my current mood, so that we will just see. My plan after reading this book is to read a lot of short books and hope that that will be my way out of this slump, but that we don't know yet. But we'll just see. I'm taking all the advice you may have, but I think I will focus on reading things I know I will enjoy. So this was the wrap up of my first TBR, I should say. And I don't think I will be making a lot of TBRs, not in that sense. I don't know if it worked for me. I did not read more than I usually do at this moment, but that could also be because of my slump, who knows. And I read 50-50 of the books I thought I would read and ended up reading. In October, I know that I will read one book, and that's Bewilderment by Richard Powers, because that's a shortlister for the Booker Prize this year. And I sort of hope either that book or No One Is Talking About This can win the award so I can brag about it. But we'll just wait and see. Other than that, I hope to read one horror book, because it's nearing in on Halloween, so that would be appropriate. Some short books and maybe some more Neil Gaiman. Maybe Coraline, which is a very short Neil Gaiman book. That might be the medicine I'm going to need right now. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, just ask. And subscribe to my channel if you want to. And I'll see you next time. Bye. This book is not autobiographical, autobiographical, autobiographical.